I'm glad that once again Elijah Wood is picking smaller movies just to like kind of hype up the movie a little bit and stuff, because I don't think a movie like this would have really gotten the traction that it would have had without his name. And that's what I've loved about other movies that he's been in over the past, honestly, like 10 years. He's been killing it, I'd say, at the indie film market and stuff.
It is February 13th, 1986. This is Agent Bill Hagmaier. I'm sitting with Theodore.
No, Ted.
I'm sitting with Ted Bundy.
What's up, YouTube? Jab Eye Movies here, and you are watching
Fresh Releases.
My name is James.
My name is Blaze.
And today we're checking out the latest thriller about Ted Bundy, No Man of God.
You think they should kill me, don't you? You think it's my time to die?
Frankly, they probably should have done it a long time ago.
I'm going to take you somewhere that I've never taken anyone before.
So the film No Man of God is about the complicated relationship that formed between the FBI analyst Bill Hagmaier and serial killer Ted Bundy during Bundy's final years on death row. So this film is a very subtle, kind of emotional, small piece. I felt like very, very simple. You could tell from the onset that it's like, you know, very independent production. But I think a lot is really there to show off. It seems like a showpiece, like a real calling card for the director Amber Seeley, but as well for the writer C. Robert Cargill, who we've seen many of his films before. I think he wrote Sinister with Scott Derrickson and a couple other films, if I remember. I think he wrote Doctor Strange with Scott Derrickson, if I remember correctly. So we've seen the work from a lot of these people. Elijah Wood, obviously, a lot of his cool stuff coming out of Spectre Vision, which I don't think this was a Spectre Vision film. But yeah, the only person I didn't really recognize actually was Luke Kirby in this film. But I was pleasantly surprised.
Which coincidentally, I just became familiar with this year. I recently got into the show The Marvelous Miss Maisel on Amazon Prime, and he plays one of the main comedians within that show, who's like also like kind of like a little like love interest in a way, but he's not like a main character, but he's a recurring character throughout the 3 seasons. No, I believe it's actually only been on for 2 seasons, and the 3rd season's about to start. But I've been a fan, and like seeing him in this movie though was definitely a different take on what I've seen him in, just because his voice is very like high-pitched, outgoing, very charming and polite within that show, versus this, like he definitely goes for a much more deeper, like sinister, like kind of voice tone and stuff. So I was very impressed, and like you said, like it felt like a calling card for the writer and director of the film, but also felt like a calling card for him as well too, just because I think a lot of people know him or might recognize him, but he hasn't really gotten a lot of leading roles. And I'm glad that once again Elijah Wood is picking smaller movies just to like kind of hype up the movie a little bit and stuff, because I don't think a movie like this would have really gotten the traction that it would have had without his name. And that's what I've loved about other movies that he's been in over the past, honestly, like 10 years. He's been killing it, I'd say, at the indie film market and stuff. So I absolutely love that about Elijah Wood, and glad that this movie came out, just because this is right up my alley for the most part.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty, if you're into all that like serial killer stuff, like I think this film does a great job of illustrating, because we already have many Ted Bundy pieces, but I feel like this film, I think I liked the most was that it focused on just the relationship between Hagmaier and Bundy, but it really did focus more on Hagmaier, and just kind of, I feel like I didn't feel as dirty watching this movie. I mean, it's still pretty bad, honestly, because you have a lot of like really creepy scenes of where Luke Kirby, who really gets lost in the performance and really is, I think, honestly, the best part about this movie. I had no idea who he was, and I legit thought like he was Ted Bundy, because he looks just like him. Aside from, he's a really tall guy, so that like whenever they do that kind of perspective shift where you see Elijah Wood and him in the same room, you're like, what? Like they kind of do it well, where he doesn't look tall until you see him in in master shots, and you're like, oh, like he's huge, like, or at least he seems a lot bigger. Maybe it's just Elijah Wood is like a very petite man, but I thought that was like funny, because I think if I remember correctly, I'm not positive, but I always feel like Ted Bundy was kind of like a smaller guy, right? Like I got the vibe that he always was.
I'm not too familiar with Ted Bundy as much. Like I always kind of found like Jeffrey Dahmer pretty interesting, but Ted Bundy, I know that he has like a long Netflix documentary that I have yet to check out. And then also that Netflix original film with Zac Efron that I also did not check. I remember that movie like just got like mediocre reviews, so I just never really was that interested. And also I couldn't really take. I like Zac Efron. I think he's hilarious as a comedic actor, but I just wasn't ready to take him head on as like a serial killer, especially when people were saying like, oh my god, like people were like kind of freaking out and like kind of like objectifying him as a serial killer and stuff, like how people used to with Ted Bundy, because I remember he would get like love letters. Apparently he's like known as the pretty serial killer. But yeah, as you were saying, I'm not sure if he was really a big guy per se, but yeah, like seeing Luke Kirby in this, like it's definitely like one of the things I wanted to talk about, I thought, was like the editing of this film. It's very slow paced, especially with the shots too. A lot of long takes and just still shots. But then finally, as we get to like, I mean, it's not really a spoiler because it's based on a true story. When Ted Bundy finally reveals like and admits to his murders and stuff, like just all of a sudden it gets to like a lot of quick cuts, but they're still done very slowly. The camera's moving very slowly because you're taking in all this information in quick little little bits and stuff, and it's just like a lot to take where you just like kind of feel gross. And I love that the camera almost works as if you're looking away at the same time and everything.
Yeah.
Like I thought that was a cool characteristic.
Yeah, this is a very almost subtle movie because it's just such a specific part, which I did enjoy because it's like we already have so much Ted Bundy stuff, but this is like literally just focuses on the last, I forget the amount of time, but like basically that last part of his life and kind of where he's like trying to almost atone for his sins. But it's like, I don't know, there's a part of you as like any human being that's just like, bruh, there is nothing, like, I don't care what God you believe in, but I would hope that no God would say that's okay. Like, come on, bro. Like, especially that last scene that hits, you're just like you could see he's really scared to death, but it's like, dude, you're scared to death when you put so many people through hell, and worse than hell, let's be honest here. And besides the victims, their families as well, like, it's just really disgusting. One thing I do want to talk about that I think that not many people focus on when it comes to a lot of this, there's always a little muttering and conversation in the background, is that like we've almost gotten to this point, like Netflix especially, but a lot of the streaming services where it's like serial killer porn is like real, not actual porn, but just the fact that there's so much serial killer glorification and stuff. Like I kind of enjoy some of the documentaries, but at the same time it's just like sometimes it's just too much. Like why are we glorifying these people? It's disgusting. Like when are we gonna have the freaking documentaries about like school shootings and shit? Like it only seems like it's around the corner. They're gonna run out of serial killers at some point. So I don't know, there's just a part of me that hates it. I think this did a really interesting version of that movie, and obviously it's not a documentary, so that it gives, you know, the talented individuals that are behind the scenes on this film like a chance to really strut their stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm still just like, dude, I'm just so over all this like glorification of serial killer stuff. I don't listen to any podcasts, but that is a whole other freaking $1 million market as well.
Yeah, I know that's like a whole feed on like every social media app where there's like just people who just love to talk about serial killers and post about like, you know, just weird fantasy stories about them and stuff. And it's like, I've always found that kind of like bizarre and creepy. I mean, whatever is their kink, like I don't kink shame, I guess, but like some of it can be a little too much. So I definitely get what you're saying. And I'm glad that this movie didn't really like make us sympathetic towards Ted Bundy whatsoever. Like you're sympathetic towards Elijah Wood and kind of see where he's coming from, why he's developing this like kind of odd friendship that's not really a friendship, but at the end of the day though, they're getting along and they're two human beings just trying to figure out each other and stuff. So like you're sympathetic towards his character and why he's thinking the way he is towards the end of the movie. But I like that like in the final moments though, like Elijah Wood's like, no, you're a terrible person, like we are friends, but like you're still a terrible person. Like, you know, you do have to like, you know, you have to, you know, be held accountable for everything that you've done and stuff. And so I really appreciate it in that aspect. And like at the end of the day, like we don't really feel bad for Ted Bundy in the end. So like, I'm glad that they went in that direction versus like trying to make us feel bad for him and give us a reason to be like, oh, this is why he was this way and stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I mean, from all the stuff I've watched about him, he tries to like blame like porn on all this shit. Like, think about how mainstream porn is nowadays. Like, there's no other, like, I mean, there's definitely is other serial killers and stuff, and that probably didn't help maybe some, but I think the evidence is there right now that doesn't lead to, like, because Ted Bundy is like trying to say that in the last days of his life, he was like almost treading water to come up with an excuse for everything. You can find these interviews on YouTube of him like saying like porn is the reason for everything that turned him into who he was. And I think it's such a load of horse shit. Not saying like, you know, that like porn is good or anything, but I just think it's such a load of horse shit. And he was clearly trying to backpedal to find some type of reasoning or excuse for why you should feel sympathy for this literally Satan incarnate, essentially.
Yeah, 100% and stuff. Like, in your final moments, you kind of figure out what kind of person people are, I'd say, and just like, you know, like at the end of the day, like, you're gonna, like, I think anyone in his shoes would be put into panic mode and stuff. But yeah, that's a great take and stuff. Yeah, like this movie, like, even though there's not like really a whole lot to talk about, just because it's a 100-minute movie. It's like a little longer than what the subject like is telling, but like it doesn't feel that long. It still feels pretty short, just because it's overall like the best parts of Mindhunter, like, and it has an actual likable character. Like, I love Mindhunter, but I'll admit the main character I can care less about. I kind of like the more like the tough guy detective in that show and stuff. So like, I liked that it brought back like some of those aspects, but like made it like more straightforward into a pretty good tight 100-minute movie.
Definitely, yeah. I appreciated how tight and well knit this film was, and it was, you know, really just a calling card for everyone involved. They'll definitely be keeping tabs of everyone in this film and like what they have coming out next. But more especially, I think Luke Kirby, he was the most surprising thing about this film. I really hope he goes on to have a, you know, really interesting next film, or maybe I'll watch Marvelous Miss Maisel, I guess.
It's surprisingly really funny. I mean, you're going to see him in a different light, but yeah, I enjoy that show. But yeah, so tell us your opinion on Luke Kirby, everyone. Like, a great way to help support the show is by leaving a comment, let us know what you thought about the movie, as well as Luke Kirby in The Marvelous Miss Maisel. You can also check out the movie itself through our Amazon affiliate link in our description box below. And that's a great way to help us out.
And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and click the notification bell to get all of our latest updates.
And if you can't get enough of us here on YouTube, well, guess what? You're in luck, because all our social media links are down below. We have Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Be sure to catch us all in those apps as well. So yeah, anyways, guys, that's going to conclude this week's episode. Tune in next week for a brand new video.